since Friday, since the expansion of the walkouts, has been a little bit quiet. So I think there's real work going on. There's photo op, today with the president being on the picket line. But I think real work's getting done. And I've said this all along. I think really for the manufacturers, it's about flexibility to rationalize capacity and headcount going forward. And for the union, it's about sharing in the profitability that the automakers have had over the past 10 years.
40% increase in pay. Kevin, president says yes. I'm not sure that many Americans can relate to it, that 40% increase in pay. So walk us through the changing balance sheets potentially for the big three U.S. automakers as we transition to that EV world. I mean, does that balance sheet change the cost, the gains?
Yeah, look, and I think if it's the labor component of cost of goods, it's a little bit easier to absorb, right? So if you look at even just transaction prices over the life of the last contract, up significantly. So even if there's 8% a year over the next 4 years, which comes out to be that 36%, prices have actually risen faster than that during the last contract. Now, a lot of the automakers, Ford specifically, are all truck in the U.S., so there's very little additional mix upside for companies like that. Electrification isn't quite there yet, so it's probably going to be something like software and in-vehicle content that helps offset some of those costs. But where it would really hurt and impact the balance sheet would be in, a change in sort of the pension, the healthcare, some of those long-term legacy costs, or being tied into a specific headcount and capacity level that just isn't sustainable as volume declines and continues to decline going forward.
Diana, we talked with you on Friday, so thank you for coming back. You work closely with the dealerships. Remind our audience what you are hearing from them and how you are thinking about this in regards to them.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of confusion that's going on, and I think the worries that if you are a GM, Ford, or Stellantis dealership right now, you're not sure where your parts are coming from, and you don't know where your vehicles are going to be coming from in the future. Electric vehicles is a really hot topic right now, especially because Tesla has stolen the electric market from the original traditional automakers.
Stolen or just smart and read the market and first mover advantage?
I mean, I think
no offense, many would argue that Tesla woke up the world and said, we can do this. Because I think the traditional automakers were putting out a much longer timeline. And Tesla came in and kind of woke everybody up.
Well, I think what happened differently was the fact that they actually went to court and they decided that they were going to actually go direct to consumer.
There it is. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. All of America, 25 traditional automakers, all were set long time ago, and the law basically said that you could not sell direct-to-consumer sales.
But why not? Kevin, come on in on this. Why can't cars be sold direct to consumers? I mean, they are now. Or couldn't be.
Yeah.
Like, who was that protecting?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, an automaker is going to book revenue on the sale to the dealership, right? So when you have companies like Lucid and Rivian and starting to happen to Tesla, where you can't deliver to the consumer all your vehicles, you can't book that revenue. And that's where these price cuts are coming from, right? You're paying to build the vehicle, so all that cost is in your cost of goods, but you're not booking revenue until you sell it or deliver it to the consumer and they pay for it. Where everybody else with a franchise model is booking revenue. So your gross margin is consistent because your revenue is booked and offsetting your cost of goods on the sale to the dealership. The other thing is, look, if there's a 10% haircut in what the manufacturer takes in selling the vehicle to the dealership wholesale, there's no way ever that any automaker at scale is going to recreate the franchise model and deliver and support and service vehicles at a margin better than 10% ever. So the direct sales model isn't scalable. I mean, people talk about how great it is for Tesla, but it's not, right? And it's not scalable, and it's not sustainable, and it's not something that the legacy automakers can move to.
But one challenge there, Diana, and feel free to just jump in here.
Yeah.
Is if you're a car dealership, you're making so much of your money based on servicing internal combustion engine vehicles.
Absolutely.
Somebody brings in a car to get an oil change, you're
Absolutely.
making money on that.
Yeah.
You know what doesn't need an oil change? An EV.
Right. But at the end of the day, not all automakers are going to make it, right? You've got all of the traditional automakers, including the big three, now actually coming out with electric vehicles. You have Tesla, you have Lucid, you have Rivian, you have Polestar, you have BYD, Chinese automakers coming in. Sony Honda is building a vehicle and releasing their car in 2026. Overall, not everybody's going to make it, and they're going after hard dollars for EV. Now, what has happened with Detroit Big Three? They will lose ground right now on EV, selling EV, leasing EV, at the end of the day, if they don't resolve the UAW strike, right? And that's my fear, because when somebody leases a vehicle for 3 years, you're locked. For 3 years, you cannot make another brand decision after that. So I think in the next 5 years, the EVs that are going to make it are all going to be, we're going to know who they are. And they are going to be BMW. I believe that. I believe there's going to be the Germans, the Koreans. I think that Japanese brands like Toyota is going to actually also
What
make
about the
it.
big three U.S.?
That's what I'm fearing. Like,
What are you afraid of?
if the UAW strike doesn't get resolved, eventually we will not be able to produce these electric vehicles.
So, but
and
but there's resolution, and then there's like, what's the resolution that needs to happen?
that
Not just be done.
we just have to negotiate where it's fair for everybody. But overall, I want the Detroit Three to make it.
Yeah.
These are the only automakers in the U.S.
Well,
we can't not have the U.S. market.
Apart from
So-
Tesla.
Yes.
So Kevin, come back
course.
here. I mean, what is the right balance? Does it make sense that workers get more money? I mean, that's the backbone of these automakers, but at the same time, you don't want to increase those legacy costs so that, I don't know, 5 years from now, you're looking at an industry that, like we saw before the great financial crisis, right? That had some real serious problems.
Yeah, well, look, people talk about Tesla dominating EV sales, which are still a very small percentage of sales in this country. They did it because they lose money on the vehicles for 10 years. And it's not an issue of if or when legacy automakers can make a decent EV, it's when are they profitable. And that's why you get slow moving or a slow play by the domestic manufacturers. They're printing money on full-size internal combustion pickups and SUVs, and then the market or the media or the government wants to move to an unprofitable alternative, and it's just not ready. And that makes it very messy, and that's where it is right now. So it's not a matter of, can GM figure out how to make an EV? They made an EV in the 1990s and saw what that cost looked like, that it was unsustainable. So what's going to happen with the additional costs in this labor contract is that the small cars, the unprofitable cars, the inexpensive cars are going to get lopped off the bottom of the portfolio, and prices are going to go higher for everybody.